Hello everyone and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name is Amanda and in today's video we have another brand new launch to share. So today launches the new Kiki London Blooming Gel and I have been so excited to share this one with you. First up, I want to point out how much I love the packaging. The whole pastel marble vibe I think works perfect for Blooming Gel. As you guys probably know that Blooming Gel is amazing for creating marble nail art. On the back of your bottle, as always, you have all of your directions, the ingredients, how to store and how to use the product. So you've got all that important information right there on the bottle. The Blooming Gel as well, it does come in the larger 15 milliliter size, which is brilliant because when you're using these nail art products, I personally find it a lot better to have a larger size bottle. Now let's take a look at the consistency. So I would say this is a medium viscosity gel, which I personally prefer. You don't want your Blooming Gel to be too runny because then your designs start running all over the place, but you also don't want it to be too thick that it's going to not effectively bloom. So I'm really loving the consistency. Now I have a couple of different ways that I'm going to share with how you can use the Blooming Gel, but as always, whenever we start off any kind of a nail design, we always need to prep the nails. So I do have a video up on the Kiki London channel on how to prep the natural nails. So I will leave that linked in the description box below because prep is very, very important. As I'm working on display tips, this would be the same as if you were working on press-on nails. So you want to remove the shine using your buffer and then come in and apply a layer of your chosen base coat. Today I've opted to use the clear rubber base. Once that has cured, you need to come in and select your base color. So I'm going to use a vanilla latte today. This is a beautiful creamy off-white shade, which is part of the new autumn 2022 collection. I do have a recent swatch video up on the channel. So again, that will be linked in the description box below. And as you can see, vanilla latte is a beautiful, soft and delicate color. So it makes a brilliant base for nail art. Now, depending on the design you're doing, you might not necessarily need a base color underneath. If you know you're going to be doing a full cover marble, for example, you could come in and do that straight on top of your base coat, but I personally always like to have a base color down. So once we've applied that second coat and cured that, we're ready to move on to applying our Blooming Gel. So first of all, I'm just going to get everything prepared so that we can flow nicely with the design. So I've opted to use a couple of colours from the new autumn collection and I'm going to pop these down on the palette. This first design, we're going to be doing kind of like a stone marble effect. So I'm going to take my colours and pop them down on the palette. Now, when it comes to Blooming Gel, there is so many different designs you can create. You can create the crystal marble stone looks. You can create your classic marbles in lots of different variations, not forgetting things like Blooming Gel roses or blooming florals. But then you can also create things like watercolor effects and tie-dyes. This is one of the things I love about Blooming Gel and nail art. The possibilities are endless. So make sure you just have a lot of fun with it. So for this design, I'm going to take my colours and pop them down on the palette. Then I'm going to come in and apply the Blooming Gel. So I'm kind of making sure that I take off some of the product from my brush. When you are working with a new bottle, you're going to find your bottle brush is very loaded and you only need to apply a thin layer of this to the nail. So I'm applying a thin even layer to the entire nail surface because of the type of marble design that we're going to create. And then for this particular design, we are going to simply pick up our colours and swirl them down onto the nail. And basically the Blooming Gel is going to do all of the work for us. It's going to allow those colours to basically bloom, soften and mix and merge together. And I'd say this design has more of that crystal marble stone look. But because I've used quite contrasting colours, it might not be as subtle as what it could be. So for example, think of this technique if you want to create things like rose quartz or the jade crystal effect nails. You would use things like the pinks and whites to create a more subtle effect. But I wanted this to look quite autumnal and contrasting, so that's why I went for these colors. And as you can see, all I'm doing is laying them down into that Blooming Gel. Another thing that I forgot to mention is you don't cure your Blooming Gel until you are happy with your design. So you pop that thin layer of Blooming Gel down and you leave it wet and you apply your gel polish design into that wet layer of blooming gel. Then once you are happy with how it's all bloomed, that's when you pop it into Cure. So at this point, the blooming gel and the gel polish, they're starting to mix. It's starting to create that bloomed, smooshy kind of effect. And then this is what that looks like. So this is whilst it's still blooming. The longer you leave it, the more it's going to bloom. So bear that in mind for the design that you're creating. I wanted to come in and add some glitter through this marble. So again, whilst that blooming gel is still wet, I'm coming in and just adding on some glitter, kind of like in between the colours. And because you've got that blooming gel there, it's going to separate and not mix in with the colors, if that makes sense. I will bring up the nail closer and you can see what I mean. But adding in that glitter looked absolutely beautiful. And you can see, since I last showed you, the design has bloomed even more. The colors have separated that little bit more, and it just looks absolutely beautiful. So now that I'm happy with the effect, I'm going to pop that in to Cure for 30 seconds. And this is what that design looks like. I was really impressed with how this looked. So now we're ready to come in and top coat to finish off the design. I always opt to use my No Wipe rubber top coat over any kind of nail art, but over the blooming gel, I've especially loved it because sometimes when you're playing around with gels, when you're playing around with the marble techniques, or when you're doing blooming gel roses, you're moving the product on the nail around quite a lot. And this can create kind of a bit of a slight uneven surface. So by coming in and adding a layer of the rubber top coat, it really smooths that out because the rubber top coat is that little bit thicker. And as you can see, it gives off a beautiful, smooth, high shine finish. So that was the first design. On to the second one. I've already done my 2 coats of vanilla latte, and we're going to do a marble again, but this time with a different technique. So for this technique, you are going to need your dotting tool and the round nail art brush. And for this marble technique, what we are basically going to do is we're going to come in and apply our thin layer of blooming gel. So exactly the same as before, taking a small amount of product on one side of the brush and then just applying a thin, even layer of this to the nail. You do want to make sure that it's even, because if it's thicker in some areas and thinner in some areas, that is going to affect how the gel blooms. Then for this marble, we're going to actually create the marble on the palette. So I'm taking a couple more colours. This one is from the Autumn 2022 collection as well. We've got the beautiful Persian Plum. And then again, I wanted to keep with that autumnal vibe. So I'm going to take Hazel Night. I think this colour looks absolutely gorgeous with Persian Plum. And then we're going to take another colour from the new Autumn 2022 collection, which is the gorgeous Apricot Blush. When doing marbles, you kind of want to bear in mind whether you want to go for quite a contrasting look or colours that look quite similar. So the previous one was quite contrasting, where these colours are all quite warm, kind of got that cozy autumn vibe to them. So they blend together a little bit differently. And then as you can see, I run my dotting tool through those gel polishes on the palette and created the marble on the palette. Our blooming gel is on the nail, but it is still wet. We've not popped that into Cure yet. And then I'm going to pick that marble up using my round nail art brush and kind of roll it into that uncured blooming gel. And what's going to happen is you've already created the marble effect, but the blooming gel is going to smoke out the edges. It's going to create this really cool, smoky, bloomed effect. And I absolutely love this for marbles. I'd say this is one of my favorite techniques. If you have watched the Kiki London channel, you will see in previous videos I've been using my base coat to act as a blooming gel. But the problem with that is where the base coat is a little bit of a thinner consistency, sometimes it can bloom too much and too quickly. So that's why I'm so glad that we now have our very own blooming gel, because it just blooms a lot better. As you can see here, look how those edges are just ever so slightly starting to bloom out. You have a lot more control over how much you want it to bloom, because like I said, if you don't want too much of a bloom, just pop on your marble and get it straight into Cure. But if you want it to bloom a lot more, then just wait a few seconds until you're happy with how it looks. Again, I run a little bit of glitter through that marble, as I really think it adds a little bit of texture to the design and just makes it look overall a little bit more fancy. And then we've popped that into Cure, and how beautiful does this look? The marble isn't as defined this way, but I just love the smoky edges it creates. So again, we always need to come in and top coat to seal in the design and finish off the nail. So I'm going to stick with that no wipe rubber top coat and apply a thin layer of this to the nail. Although the rubber top coat is a little bit thicker, it applies absolutely beautifully and it self levels beautifully as well. So you're not left with a thick or bulky looking nail. Another thing though, the rubber top coat is one of the few products from Kiki London that does require a 60-second cure. If you are ever unsure of your cure times, do check your bottles or the website and it will tell you. But as always, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help in the comments below. On to our third design is the third and final marble technique I wanted to show you guys today. So for this now, I've done a bright white base. I've gone for coconut, 2 coats, curing each coat for 30 seconds. And this time I've gone for some brighter neon colours just to mix it up a little bit. So I'm going to take those 3 colours, and then what we're going to actually do is we're going to come in and apply our blooming gel. So again, same as before, thin, even coat to the entire nail. I like to apply it to the entire nail because this way you're going to have a nice even surface. If you only apply it in certain areas, 1, it will only bloom in those areas that it's applied, but 2, you might end up with a too uneven nail. Now for this design, we're just going to simply dot on our colours using the bottle brush. If you don't feel confident using the bottle brush, you can pop them down on a palette, but this was kind of a more quick and easy salon friendly marble. So we're going to simply dot on those colours, then take our dotting tool and swirl through them on the nail. So it's kind of similar to swirling through them on your palette, but this technique gives you a little bit more of a defined marble because you're not having to pick it up and roll it onto the nail. And this marble technique is also great if you only want marbles in certain sections of the nail, because you would only pop your colours down where you want them to go. I've still gone for a fairly full coverage marble design, but I love how it turned out and you are still able to see sections of the white underneath. So as you see, it's simply swirled through them with my dotting tool. The edges are starting to bloom, the colours are starting to marble together that little bit more, but I want to keep this with that quite defined marble. So I'm going to get this in quickly to cure for that 30 seconds, because the moment it goes in the lamp, it's going to freeze everything in place. And look how gorgeous this looked. I absolutely loved this marble. So to mix things up a little bit, I did decide to come in and matte top coat this nail. So we're going to apply a thin coat of the matte top coat. Now, if you did feel as though because your nail is looking a little bit uneven from playing around with the marble, you could pop a layer of rubber top coat down first, keep it super thin, and then apply your matte top coat. But I didn't feel as though this nail was too uneven, so I jumped straight in with that matte top coat. And look how gorgeous it looks with the matte effect. I think matte blooming gel marbles are just one of my favorite nail designs. On to the fourth design, we're going to finish off our marbles and we're going to move on to a blooming rose. So I have already done 2 coats of my vanilla latte. Now, even though we're not doing a marble design, we're doing a rose, I'm still going to come in and apply that blooming gel to the entire nail just so it's nice and even. You could technically just apply this in areas where you want the rose to be, but I just personally do prefer to apply it to the entire nail. And then for the rose, we're going to take that Perisian Plum and the stripe liner brush. So I'm going to load up my brush with a fair amount of gel polish, because for the blooming design, you do want a decent amount of polish on your brush, because it's going to start blooming out. If you don't have enough product on your brush, you're not going to get as much definition. And then for the rose, we've kind of done 2 little swirls, and then we're just coming around the center and doing kind of like croissant shapes. They're kind of like a little line that's a bit thicker in the center, if that makes sense. And you do need to work quite quickly when you are doing these designs, because obviously the moment you start adding gel polish to the blooming gel, it starts blooming. So as you can see, the center's bloomed out a lot more of the edges, and that's what creates the blooming rose effect. So we're going to get that straight into cure for 30 seconds, and this is what the result looked like. Now I wanted to come in and do another rose down towards more of the tip of the nail, so I'm going to come in and apply another layer of that blooming gel again to the entire nail. Because I'm only applying it quite thin, it's not adding any additional thickness or bulk to the nail, so don't stress too much about ending up with a bulky finished nail. Once we've got that thin layer applied, again, I'm going to load up my stripe liner brush with a decent amount of gel polish and just create little swirls for the center of the rose, and then come around the edges with those lines that are slightly thicker to replicate the rose petal shapes. This is really, really simple to do once you get the hang of the technique, and you can create so many different effects with this because you don't necessarily have to do small roses like this. You could do one large rose, you could come in with as many or as little petals as you wanted. You could mix it up and have different colors, so each petal a different color and things like that. This one of the things I love about Blooming Doll is just the possibilities are endless. So again, once we've finished off the rose petals, we're going to pop that straight in for a 30-second cure. And then this is what the finished result looks like. Now you can leave it like this. I do think this looks very, very pretty. But when I'm doing the blooming roses, what I like to then come in and do is add just a few little lines without the blooming gel. So we've got the blooming gel petals underneath, and then these petals that we're drawing on here, we're kind of going around the edges and just adding in a little bit of definition. And overall, I think this gives off a little bit more texture to the nail and just it takes it up to the next level, basically, I think. And it looks absolutely amazing, just adding in that little bit of definition to the rose. You could even do this with a little bit of glitter or some white or even a black to create different effects on the nail. So again, we're going to pop that in to cure for 30 seconds. And then we're going to come in again with that no wipe rubber top coat just to make sure we've got a nice smooth high shine finish. So I'm just going to apply a thin layer of this to all of the nail. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you are thinking of the blooming gel. Is it something that you want to add to your kit? Do you have any questions on how to use it? As I say, I'm always happy to help in the comment section. If there's something that I can't help in comments, I might be able to create a video to help show you guys. So if there's anything you are struggling with, just reach out and let us know. Now I do have one final design that I wanted to share with you guys. So again, on top of that vanilla latte base, we're applying our blooming gel. So one of the things you can do with the blooming gel is more of a watercolor effect. So when you think of watercolor, it's quite soft and delicate. So we're going to do some watercolor flowers. Now this was one of the first times I've done this. A lot of the time when I think of blooming gel, I mainly think of marbles, but I really wanted to give the watercolor effect a go. So I'm going to add on a couple of colors onto my palette, and then we are going to create our flowers in that blooming gel, and we're going to kind of create them exactly the same as if we was doing flower petals on a non-blooming gel design, but the blooming gel design is going to create that more softer watercolor look. So I'm going to start off, I'm taking my dotting tool and I'm just dotting down 4 little circles. You could do 4, 5, 6 depending on the flower design that you want to go for. And then just taking my detail brush, I'm going to pull the centers of those circles into the center of the nail. Then I'm going to leave that to bloom and move on and do the next flower. Now again, like with the rose, you do need to work quite quickly with this, but it's really easy, so it's easy enough to work quickly, if that makes sense. The reason you want to work quite quickly is because that first flower is going to already start blooming, and then when you move on to the second one, that's going to be blooming even more. So try to work as quick as you can, and all you're simply doing is putting the centers of the flowers into the center of the nail. And then as you can see, it creates this really cool watercolor petal vibe. Absolutely loved it. So I'm going to pop that in to cure for 30 seconds. And then I'm going to take some of the gorgeous honeybee because I wanted a bit more of an autumnal yellow for these. And I'm going to pop this down on my palette. And then we're just going to simply add a dot in the center for our flowers. I didn't add any blooming gel. I didn't add these, sorry, when we had the blooming gel there because I wanted the dot in the center to stay quite circular and not have the blooming gel effect. And then I'm going to finish these off with the matte top coat. But the one mistake I made here is I come in and I matte top coated, and then I kind of thought, well, to make this design just look a little bit more finished, technically the flowers need some stems. So I come in and I matte top coated, but then I decided to add in my stems. So if you did want to replicate this design, I would recommend doing your little green stems before you come in and top coat, because it was kind of a bit of a wasted step. But all I'm simply doing for my stems is taking my strap liner brush and adding on some little lines with the sage green. So guys, that is the blooming gel demo. Let me know what you think, and like I said, any questions, pop them below. It is now on sale on the Kiki London website, which is always left in the description box below, so do check it out. And like I said, with blooming gel, there is no rules. Just have fun and let it bloom. And I'm telling you, you will create some absolutely amazing designs. I really can't wait to look forward to seeing all of you Kiki users enjoying the blooming gel. So don't forget to tag Kiki London on Instagram with all of your creations. So then I have left a little clip showing you guys those 5 nails that we created. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I hopefully will see you all again in the next one. Lots of love. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye bye.